Welcome to Little Birdie Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Heathcote, aka Scoot. I've got Sammy, Jane, Todd joining me. How are you, Sammy, in COVID lockdown?
Well, we're waiting on our test results, but feeling very good this morning. Ready in my active wear to go for a run as soon as I get the all clear.
Perfect. SEN have got a COVID scare. My test results have come back negative, so I'm good to go. Hopefully everyone else in the team at SEN get a similar outcome. There's 2 live cases at the moment, so let's hope it's quarantine. We've got a special guest on the show today. We've got DK, aka the Punter's Punter. Welcome to Little Birdie Podcast.
Hey, Scoot. Hey, Sammy. Thanks for having me on. Great to be here. Very much that COVID, would have rather seen you in person, but here we are. Typically COVID, we're on Zoom, so looking forward to it, mate.
Last time we saw each other in person was no good for my liver, so I'm personally happy about this situation.
Just going to say, we're in a bit better condition today at last time you saw me.
The Stratosphere almost claimed a couple of victims, but DK was doing his best work. It's COVID times down here in Victoria, so no one is seeing anyone, and this is the state of things. Now, looking at today's show, we've got AFL. We're going to talk about the disastrous season for the Demons. What's going on at Demonland and how can they improve, and what's happening with their finals chances? Are they completely cooked or not? Where are they going to finish? Who's going to finish 8th, and does anyone want to finish 8th? And which players now are going to escape Victoria and start to put themselves on the chopping block to go play in Perth or Brisbane or any other state but Victoria at the moment? Season 2021 is coming up, and I know as a Victorian, I would not want to play for a Melbourne club next year. So the trade period this year is going to be absolutely a hot topic. There's going to be people leaving Victoria like the absolute droves out of town. There's going to be a big wagon and everyone's going to be on it. We saw the procession out of Melbourne last week with all the media who's who, and it'll be no different. So I'm expecting some big rumblings there. We'll talk to Dowson and Cam, talk AFL there. The NRL, there's a new CEO. The interim CEO has now been crowned Peter Volandi's new CEO, and Sonny Bill Williams has ridden back into town to Top Rope Tedeschi to discuss. We'll talk NRL in the Hall of Fame with Top Rope, and then racing. Samantha, Jane, Todd, Victoria's darkest day on Sunday with the news from Dan Andrews, but your darkest day was Saturday. Nature Strip losing.
Yeah, it wasn't a good time.
You declare it immoral or?
No, I didn't. Someone I know did. Has to shave their head. So.
Mate.
Let's hope Jason Richardson from Get On goes the full razor blade. But I was speaking to BZ in another chat room, and I said, please don't let yourself go to the absolute zero of a razor. Settle for the 0, and if you can get away with a 1 up top, that will do. His feathers may never grow back. Now, the BetEasy merger is another big hot topic for punters at the moment. It's disastrous for another bookmaker to be gone, into merger. And another avenue all of a sudden, DK, to get on is gone. DK, you live and breathe it as a professional horse racing punter, and your minimum bet laws, where you do all your work in the provincial and country meetings, are more severe. You can only get on to win $1,000 versus $2,000 after 9 o'clock in the city.
Yeah.
How hard does that make life for you, a merger and then the current minimum bet laws?
Oh, mate, it's another avenue gone, and one avenue I use. Like, I've trimmed down my avenues these days because they're getting less and less, and it's just another one. So that's part of the problem. They're one of my avenues. So, but the minimum bet laws themselves, I mean, they're getting outdated. I can't remember when they came in. Scoot, was it 2016 or something like that around then? 2000.
Yes.
So it's nearly 5 years late. Getting up to 5 years later now, and they're quite outdated. I mean, there's a 9 a.m. rule that you have to wait to 9 a.m. and that's just completely outdated. There's 3 times to bet at the moment. You can bet when the prices go up immediately there, and it's fastest finger first, and then 8 o'clock in the morning after scratchings. A lot of people bet then. The speed map guys bet then, and then everyone else bets in the last 10 minutes. So that 9 a.m. is just irrelevant now. It's completely gone. And as for amounts, I mean, you got these huge joints like BetEasy and Sportsbet together, so they're massive. The tab's massive, and for them to have the same rules as smaller operators. I mean, the fact that Top Sport, who's a smaller operator, bet you're bigger than Sportsbet, is just ridiculous. You know, we'll bet the same, have to bet the same, and at times they'll bet you bigger at their discretion. I mean, that's just silly. So I think there should be either incentives put in with the race fields, or the bookies, the tab, the sports bets, the Ladbrokes, the biggest scale operators should have their minimum bets rules as opposed to their turnover or their scale. So they should be betting you to win $3,000 in the country, and others should be betting you 1 or 2 depending on their turnover. I mean, to have, you know, it's a monolith now, Sportsbet and Bet Easy. Yet, as I said, Top Sport bet you bigger. So yeah, mates. Anyway, but nothing shocks us these days. It's been getting tougher and tougher for a long time. So just got to adapt.
And
Is it
Sammy?
a sign of the times that they're being taxed into extinction? Like, if you keep adding these taxes onto these massive companies, they're going to keep merging and dissolving, and like eventually that money that gets passed on to the punter. I mean, every tax gets passed on to the end user, whether it's, you know, for like, you know, CO2 taxes on electricity, for example. I mean, we end up paying more as an electricity consumer. It all ends up going to the consumer. So we just get poorer pricing. But you actually can get on for more if you go on course. Of course, that's not viable at the moment, especially in Victoria. But yes, I think this has to be done to scale.
Well, scale, yeah. Well, scale was a word that's always been used in the corporates. When I was at Sportsbet, they were even talking about it then, and now it's even more with the taxes and things. You can see why Sportsbet and BetEasy have merged, because they're competing against each other, both spending squillions on advertising, competing against each other, and both paying huge amounts of taxes. So why not only pay one set of expenses and have one business? So there's going to be more and more of it. I mean, Ladbrokes and Neds aren't they? Yeah. They've sort of got in bed together, and
in Queensland as well. The Queensland TAB and the New South Wales and Victorian TABs have now joined forces as well. So again, all of a sudden we've lost a couple of new avenues. So maybe the powers that be, the PRAs, need to look at the bulging turnover that's happening at the moment as a result of COVID, and they need to adjust these minimum bet laws now that the market is shrinking. And there's a groundswell of these new, on-course bookmakers that are starting to make their way out online. But again, as you guys touched upon, it doesn't scale at the moment, and the fairness just isn't quite there. And the punters and the professional punters and semi-professional punters are finding it very, very difficult. And I, for one, have changed the way I bet. I basically can do form 10 minutes before a race and sort of bet into as many races as I can on a Saturday, but it's absolutely pointless for me to look at the markets early because they're just not a true indication of what's going on. Now, another big talking point is the whip rule. I know, DK, you'll have some thoughts around that, but joining us now is Dan Bowman, the trainer of Be Good to Your Mother, who was huge last start in the Memsie. Dan Bowman now joins us from Warrnambool. He's going to discuss the current changes, or the changes that are being proposed from Racing Victoria that were released on Monday. Currently, the whip rule as it stands, jockeys are allowed to whip their horse a maximum of 5 times before the 100 metres and then unlimited after that. We've seen a big issue over in Adelaide with the protest being dismissed. If it was ever going to be paid or upheld, that was the time. And then all of a sudden, RV is now setting to propose, where the board will meet in November, that jockeys are only allowed to whip their horse between 5 and 8 times between a race. But the pretext for this is that the whip is going to be eventually banned. Dan, how did you hear about this?
I think us trainers found out the same as the jockeys and everyone else by a media release at about 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon.
And what's your opinion about the current proposed whip rule?
Well, the one we've got currently is obviously just all over the place. It's almost impossible to police. There's an infringement every day. And the fines are just a joke, there's no real serious repercussions for breaking the rule at the moment. So I think it does need looking at and reform, but for RVL to come out with this proposal with zero consultation with the jockeys is just a bit bizarre for mine, I wouldn't thought that there'd be anyone on that board who would have ridden in a race. So if that's the case, wouldn't you ask the experts, being the jockeys, for their input before you release something like this?
Seems to be a bit of a pattern at the moment emerging out of Victoria. There's a handful of people that don't have much an idea about anything that are coming up with very odd rules and restrictions. Are the jockeys saying anything in particular on how they would like the whip rules to be shaped?
Oh, well, not really. Not yet. They haven't, but obviously it only come out Monday. So they're sort of in the same boat as the trainers. We just want something where everyone sits down, all participants, and have input, and we come up with something that everyone sort of has an input on and agrees on. You know, at the moment with people from a boardroom making decisions, it's bloody dangerous. You know, these people don't sit on the horses and ride them, and they're telling people how to go out there and do their job when they've got no idea how it should be done. It's asking for danger.
My greatest fear, having worked in a few racing stables when I was quite young and ridden horses for quite some time, the idea of banning the whip altogether as a safety measure. If you're riding short and you're riding a horse around to the barrier, if a horse whips around, you can easily be dislodged. And it just seems to be madness that they'd propose to eventually ban the whip from a safety point of view. And again, it does sound like a rule that's come from someone who hasn't ridden a horse before. Dan, what do you think from a punter's perspective? What influence does the whip have and the current rules, and how's that been affecting you?
I specialise, as you know, Scoot, but the listeners might, I specialise in lightly raced maiden horses. And so that's my forte. So I'm from first starters till they win a race. They're in my sphere. So, and I'm doing video comments every day, watching every maiden race. And part of my video comment is I want to know when the rider pulls the whip on the horse. Sometimes they pull it, giving it one on the turn. Sometimes they don't pull it to the last 100, things like that. But what I have noticed is a lot of them have refined their styles. And I've just noticed Craig Williams on a Go Waterhouse horse at Geelong on Sunday. He's the most finest exponent of the whip, and he's a great horseman. He's a great ambassador for the industry. He'd be the first guy who should be sitting at the table, being consulted about it. I didn't. You speak to the jockeys. The jockeys they're with the horses all the time. And I just, to Dan, I'd just like to know what sort of consultation has there been with trainers and such, because there seems typically to be a real lack of consultation, maybe because they know what the answers they'll get.
Well, there hasn't been any consultation this time. Last time when it was reformed, there was, but this time when they've come out and stated their opinion and what they're aiming to do, there's been zero consultation. Now, I would have thought the best way to approach it to get Racing Australia to agree would be come as a united front with all key participants being on the same page. We just look like a rabble. We're all arguing amongst ourselves. Racing Australia just going to laugh us out the door. It's
definitely a massive issue in racing. Sammy, you got something to say?
Well, I was going to play devil's advocate here and just suggest that perhaps it's not a bad idea that we move towards something that has a lot less whip around. I do think they need to be held on to for the sake of safety, as you mentioned, Scoot, but not used in a race. I've got a lot of friends who are not racing people, and they take a lot of disgust to the look of what a whip stands for, rather because they don't, they have a limited knowledge of, how soft they actually are and how little they really do and all that sort of thing. But a whip does not look good for the industry. So I'm not against moving towards something that looks, that's more open and allows more participants into the racing industry. I think it puts a lot of people off. It's seen as cruel. We do need to keep an eye on our image, our racing image. But I'm with you guys. I don't like how they've done it. And I think it was very interesting when I watched Giles on racing.com the other night saying that, we'll be having consultation, but we've just told you what's going to happen. I just, our aim is X, and we'll discuss it with you, but we're doing it our way. I just don't think that's really the way to work with the people you're meant to be representing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the fast tracking of contentious integrity issues at the moment is the biggest blight on racing. Darren Weir is hearing his case, and it seems like it's been dragging on for years. I won't speak or comment on that until it's all sort of over, but things like that play out, jockeys that have been betting and then still riding, I think that's probably the number one integrity concern and the biggest blight on racing that I can see, and the biggest detractor. Things need to get tidied up.
That is 100% spot on, Nico. That is the biggest blight on racing, is the integrity issue. You ask any Joe Blow down the street what about racing, and they say everyone's a crook. It's not about the whip. There's blokes out there training who have race day treatment charges over their heads from over 12 months ago. And as you said, there's jockeys being betting. There's one in Sydney he was going to appeal. So stand him down, and if he gets offered appeal, then he have to remunerate. repay him loss of income, potential loss of income, not let him be riding in Group 1s. Like, that's as big as integrity issue as there is.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you want to bet on races when there's a jockey out there who's been given 3 years, but he's riding on appeal? If I rob a bank and I get caught and I appeal, I'm found guilty and I appeal, I sit in jail until my appeal's heard. I don't just get to go back in the streets. I'm not saying he should go to jail, but he shouldn't be allowed to ride.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Racing's got a free hit. Racing's got a free hit in the spring for this COVID. There's nothing else going on except football and racing. We've got a free hit to showcase our game and showcase the horses and the jockeys and the trainers and the participants, the strappers. And we just continue to shoot ourselves in the foot with rubbish like this. Like, why bring it up now? Why would not wait till after the spring? Like, it's just racing continues to hurt itself.
Could not agree more. Now, on a lighter note, Be Good to Your Mother was fantastic in the Memsie, I thought. How's he pulled up and where's he going to next?
Yeah, he was good in the Memsie. The track was just a bit firm, and he just got a bit keen with Streets of Avalon sitting half a length in front of him on his outside. He'll go the roof at Clark again. Obviously, he's going to get more weight, and it's going to be red hot this year. I think we got the right year last year to be able to win it. This year's going to be a lot harder. And then we'll decide after that whether we push on to a Toorak or there's a couple of Group 3 1400s, following that, whether we stay in the 1400 or we try and stretch to the mile. We'll just decide after next Saturday.
You're doing a fantastic job with that horse. Now, we're starting to run out of time, but a little birdie tells me that you're a part-time golf punter.
Oh, well, I'll be full-time soon if I keep having the success I've had lately. Yeah, I love the golf. Love betting on it. It's just, you can have a small outlay at good odds and you get 3 or 4 days worth for your money if your man's in contention. So, it's a real hobby of mine at the minute.
DJ is absolutely on fire.
On the winner of the tournament, or do you do like top 10, top 5? What are your favourite bet types?
Oh, a bit of everything. It's all about the right price. It's the same as racing, having a bet in racing. Obviously, you want to take what the right price is. But I think last week I backed Xander to win the tournament with the bonus strokes out. So I got to collect there. He ran second. And then the week before, Dustin Johnson was $9 to win the tournament and he was $7 top American. So I backed him in the top American market and he got beat in the playoff by a Spaniard, but he was still the top American. So I got to collect there again. Nice. Just stuff like that. You've just got to look for the right market.
Love it.
Too good. DK, you've got a quick D Bowman horse to follow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I was just saying Dan probably admits he's probably had a pretty quiet time, but you seem to have some nice young horses there at the moment, Dan, coming through. One of them I saw trial the other day, Capriccio, 9 Invincible filly. I think she might be one to follow when she gets back to the track. Yeah,
absolutely, DK. We've got 35 in work, and I think there's probably only 8 of those that have had more than one start. So there's about 25 horses that have had no starts or one start in work at the minute. So that sort of says where our stable's at. A lot of young horses. She will kick off in the next couple of weeks. Another one, Early Plea. He was probably unlucky not to win his maiden, his first start. He'll kick off on Friday at Swan Hill. So they're probably 2 to follow in the short term.
His manners?
Yeah, he seems to have in his work and his trials. He seems to be going straight now. So hopefully we can knock the maiden over quickly.
He was just for the listeners, he was going to win that first start, and he decided to go at right angles in the straight, didn't he?
Yeah, he went by the outside rail, and then he was inside, outside. He was all over the shop like a drunken sailor and only got beat a nose. So it was a bit frustrating.
Big thanks to Dan Bowman, one of Warrnambool's leading trainers and a big up-and-coming trainer of the future. He's going to have a lot of success in the Victorian ranks, and we love his stance on integrity and the whip rule. We could not agree more. Thanks for joining us, Dan. Good luck. Up next, we've got AFL, but DK, when you're doing the form for a Wednesday or a Saturday or every day during the week, punting form, you're a big punting form man. You love to do the post-race with puntingform.com.au.
Love the post-race on puntingform.com.au. You can slice and dice the sectional times any which way and how, and it's doing the form in this day and age, it's key. So no, punting form, permanent spot on one of my 3 screens in front of me, and very important. And if anyone wants to learn more about the data and the sectional times of racing, I firmly advise to get a subscription to punting form for sure.
Up next, we'll talk AFL with Cam Dean and Ian Dowson.
I'm Samantha, Todd. Welcome back to Little Birdie. I'm here with Scoot and DK, and it's time to welcome in Dowson.
Dowson, welcome to the show. It looks like you're very remote there. It looks like you're in a car. Are you crossing the border?
Not quite. No, where I am, power's out, internet's down, phone coverage. So I've had to sort of slip into town and literally working from the car today. So there you go. So that's
COVID, the lucky country, Australian. Now we're running out of time. We're running overtime. So let's get straight into your favourite segment of the week and everyone's is Bad Beats. What do you got there,
right. So I think you alerted the listeners to it on Twitter during the week, but the international bad beat of the year has to be the Joker, expelled from the US Open. I actually haven't seen the incident yet. Was that a strong enough offence to get booted? Did we think?
It didn't look malicious to me. It didn't look malicious, but
he's got history, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got a lot of form on the board, and
yeah, has got a little bit of history. But anyway, I've got a couple of other ones, and I was actually wondering, and I might even throw it to you, Scoot. When you're experiencing a bad beat, when you can see it all going downhill right in front of your eyes, or even when you have a quick one, what's the most common emoji that you put out on the group text?
Vomit.
The vomit one, yeah, okay. I'm probably more a hand hitting the head sort of guy, but you didn't have to look too much further from last night. The Swannies, that was a slow death. And then it looked like they might actually get back with little Louis having a shot in front of goal, but his little Louis legs couldn't get it done for the Swans betters, unfortunately. But there were a couple of others, and I'm going to have to backtrack a little bit. Some same-game multi stuff. Braden Maynard for Collingwood against the Pies the other week. He was on 14 disposals with 2 minutes to go. Point gets kicked. He goes to pick up the ball to kick in, but he kicks in from the square, so doesn't get the disposal, which would have blown up same-game multis everywhere. And the other same-game multi that would have had the punters absolutely firing those vomit or emojis all over the country the other night was the Jai Simpkin concussion. So he was well on his way to 15, 20 disposals, and it was a high disposal game as well. So I reckon every other leg was home except for Jai Simpkin. So there's one for the punters as well.
Now, one of the king of racing bad beats, and you've seen it on a couple of Little Birdie live streams, is the one and only DK. There's no bigger blow up in racing than a DK rant after a slaughter. What's a recent bad beat, DK, on the ponies for you lately?
Yeah, they just follow me around the bad beats. You're right, Scoot. No, actually, I found a whole new level of bad beats playing the head-to-heads in the horse racing, the A versus Bs. They're sort of markets where you just pick, there's two horses nominated in the race, and that's your race. One to beat the other home. And there was a race at Kilmore, and there was a leader who was a real distance query up against a run-on job. So I'm going to hammer this. I really thought that the other thing would stop on the turn, and I was like, I bet up. I went over my maximum. I didn't care. I thought it was all sweet. So the leader's gone on the turn. It's gone. Where's my thing coming on, starting to run on? Then it's gone as well. Then all of a sudden, the last 200 metres, they're both out of the picture. The race clears out. So I'm waiting on the screen, waiting, and I knew one had red colours. Mine had red colours. And then the winners goes, and then about 9th versus 10th, there's a red flash down the outside. Oh, sweet. That's me. Beautiful. That's all right. It's collared it on the line. And then I go back and watch the replay again. And it wasn't me. There was another horse in red colours. Mine had sort of orange colours, and it's finished alongside the other horse. So I've got the Foxtel IQ out. I'm rewinding, replaying. I've stopped. I cannot split them. So you've got to wait till 10 minutes, 15 minutes after the race to get the official result. So I'm clicking refresh on Racing Australia. Refresh. Yeah. The thing beat me. It got beaten 10.55. I got beaten 10.65 lengths. And I've done me money. Unbelievable. So that was that's good. That was a horror beat, mate. Horror.
He's hard to beat down. So I gave you the warning. Now the D's disastrous. Our good mate Benny Ascari, I love G'ing him up at 3/4 time when the D's are looking shaky. He didn't disappoint us against the Freo Dockers the other night. He started to bite when I went fishing, but the D's, they don't want to play the finals. They look an absolute mess.
Yeah, well, think somehow they still might end up, maybe they just scrape in somehow, but geez, they're so disappointing, the D's. Like, the long-time listeners would know I've been a bit of detractor of Goodwin for some time. They don't want for much on their list. Maybe you could argue that their bottom, 4 or 5 probably aren't that great, but that midfield, geez, they should be winning more games, and they've got a good forward line. They've got, 2 of the best pillars down back. I don't know, coaching, culture, I don't know, what is it? But they're no good.
It's a lot of head noise. Now, Melbourne lockdown. You've made it down to Inverloch. There's a power outage and it's horse and cart days down there by the look of things. If I didn't know any better, you're a big surfer. So you've got out of Melbourne. Who are the big players that you think might jump ship and head up to Queensland or Perth or New South Wales, anywhere but Victoria? Who's on the trade winds?
Yeah, I think some of the older bodies should look to head towards the warm sun. I think Nathan Jones, Josh Jenkins, Tex Walker, Chip Frawley, if these guys are looking to prolong their careers, it wouldn't hurt them to get up into the warmer weather. The only thing is, though, I don't think Brisbane and Gold Coast actually really want for too much, so I can't see those guys really getting up there. I'll tell you who does seem to like the Gold Coast. That's Sydney Stack. Maybe he could head up there and make a permanent move. So he could be someone that gets up there. But in all seriousness, I think there are a couple of guys that probably maybe look to have to leave their club. I think Levi Casbolt, if he wants to prolong his career, he probably needs to look to get on his bike. They've got a lot of tall forwards down there at Carlton with Charlie Curnow to come back. Ben Silvani has still got to come up the ranks. So I think he probably needs to get on the move to prolong his career. I think another one that maybe needs to do the same is Jeremy Finlayson. And I think another defender with the emergence of Noah Bolter, I reckon it might be a good move for Broad to get out of Richmond too. I think he could prolong his career by getting perhaps over to Freo or probably Freo. That's probably a good one for him.
There's not many markets up this week on topsport.com.au, but there's a market mover, Sammy, in the Brisbane Lions and Gold Coast Suns match. What's the betting doing there, Sammy?
Lions have been backed in here. Lions moved from 16.5 to 19.5. They're $1.32 in the win. Obviously, the Gold Coast Suns $3.50 there if you want to back them.
I just saw you take a little bit of a yawn there, Sammy. So I just wanted to throw that one in there just to keep you awake. But as soon as we mentioned Sydney Stack and the Gold Coast, you actually just spark back to life. So there's something in that. Dowso, what's your lean on the Brisbane Lions Suns match?
Oh, my lean is to the Suns, but I'll let Cam talk about that one. So I know he really likes that one. So he's getting a bit excited about that game. But I don't. Other than that, I don't really see too much else I like in the early markets that have been put up for the next round. But one bet that I will put up for the listeners this week is that I just think that Port at $8 at the moment for the flag, and I know Cam's probably more of a futures man than me, but that Port at $8 just seems too good. I can't see them not making the prelim. I just think they're going to make the prelim, which means they can't be any more than $6. In fact, their price will probably be around $4 if they make that prelim. So I think the $8 is good value. Even if you don't think they're going to win the flag, get on the $8. And if you want to make a change once they get to the prelim, you can do that. So I think the $8 for the flag's a good one.
I gotta say, you guys have been on fire with your futures bets. I was just actually having a look. Scoop busted me a moment ago. Back in episode 24, so about 5 weeks ago, you guys were tipping in Geelong. Geelong was getting spec'd at about $16 at that time. Geelong is like the money just keeps pouring in. Last week they were $5 and they're now into $4.20. So I don't question you even slightly when it comes to futures. You guys have been seeing them like beach balls this year. Unreal.
Thanks, Sammy. Yeah, so that Port one, Scoot, that's probably one for the listeners to have a look at.
Thanks, Dowso. We'll let you get back to your remote working. Looks challenging.
Yeah. No worries. Thanks, guys.
Up next, we've got Cam Dean to chat more AFL. Now it's time to talk AFL with our own Oracle. He's out of Phillip Island at the moment. He's too smart. He's avoiding COVID. Welcome to the show, Cam Dean.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
Now, let's talk futures betting first. Port, the minor premiership, Tom Hawkins, Coleman medal, Lockie, Neil, Brownlow. Mate, do you just wake up every morning, have a surf and get tomorrow's paper the day early?
Don't do this, Scoot. This is a Moz. Don't. There's still a bit to go, but they are looking well. But, I'm not declaring them over the line just yet.
Now, the top 8 market is probably the only one left that you haven't picked off. The Ds, we've already spoken about them. Dowson thinks they're a slight chance to still make it, despite every intention or their energy looking like they don't want to be there. Who do you think is going to get the coveted 8th spot?
Well, no one seems to want it at the moment after the last couple of nights. And it does look like I was having a look quickly at the markets this morning, and it did look like there was a little bit of value out there on Melbourne. It's a real raffle at the moment. Everything's falling for Collingwood's way. They'll probably limp in. GWS and Melbourne, do they want to make it?
What about the doggies, Cam?
Yeah, the doggies, they're going quite well, and they're probably one team, if they do make it, they probably could do a bit more damage, I think.
Yeah.
They would be, if you're on the higher up the ladder, the team you wouldn't want in there is probably the doggies.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. They're a bit of a joker in the pack for me, but DK grew up as a Western Bulldog supporter before he joined the beloved Hawks with his good mate, Shane Crawford. But I've got to take his words with the Dogs with a little bit of grain of salt, just like me and Hawthorn. Now, you absolutely killed them last week on the punt. This round's games, or the next couple of rounds for the next few days, are absolute season defining.
Let's go with tonight's first. What do we got tonight?
Tonight we've got Brisbane Lions, which are $1.32, Lions 19.5, Gold Coast Suns 3.50.
And I cannot get enough on the Gold Coast tonight. They're coming off a long break. Brisbane are coming off a short break. They've lost Harris Andrews, and Brisbane have limped over their last 3 games against North Melbourne, Collingwood, and I think the one other, they Saints, they just got home against. Gold Coast really needed that break. They had been battling a little bit, but they're still a really good side, and their last game was good, and then they've had this long break. I really think this is set up for a big upset tonight, so I'm pretty keen on the Gold Coast.
Do you think it's high scoring or low scoring?
These night games in the Gold Coast, I'd think more I'd be leaning on sort of a low scoring sort of match, or Brisbane and the Gold Coast because of the dew.
117 is the total points line there. So you go the unders?
Yeah, I'd be going for the unders there, yeah.
And looking at Thursday night's match, Saints and West Coast. It's a away game for West Coast. Sammy, market?
So the West Coast are the favourites. They're 4.5 point favourites. They're $1.78, and St Kilda are $2.08.
Cam?
Yeah, as you say, very season defining this one. The Saints could still miss the 8, and West Coast are sort of still on that pivot where they can get into the top 4, or they can just sort of limp through. They've been really poor away from West Coast all season. They continued that against the Dogs the other night. Probably a big key thing here is if Nick Nat comes back into the match and whether McGovern plays, which I think they both will, but I think they've lost Redden again for this match. Yo's still not back. Shuey's still out. Saints are going quite well. I only want to be on the Saints here.
Still happy to. What are your thoughts about West Coast for the premiership?
Big lay now because they can only get that one final at home, the first final, and then after that they'll have to travel for their other finals. And we know they struggle to travel, and if they have to travel to Port Adelaide or if they have to travel and play at the Gabba, it's not good for them. And I just think it's going to be they can still do it, but it's not going to be easy for them.
Good news for me and Dowso, who have been putting our neck on the line and been hard against them for the last couple of weeks. Now, Geelong Cats versus...
that's good. You're laying odds on for that, baby. That's good to see.
I've turned the corner. Now, Geelong Cats versus Richmond Tigers, Sammy, at Metricon.
Yeah, at Metricon, as you said, Friday night. So Geelong Cats are the 4.5 point favourites. They're $1.73 in the win. Richmond Tigers, $2.15 in the win.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of recency bias in this market here. I think Geelong were really good against Essendon, but I don't think they're that much better than Richmond. I think it probably should be about Pickham. I think the market may still continue to move to Geelong, and I'll be on the Tigers here.
It's going to be fascinating watching. Cam, I'll cross everything I can for you and pray to the gods that all your futures bets salute, and it's going to be a mouth-watering finale to see who gets that 8th spot. If the doggies are there, they might rattle the cage. So I think you're bang on the money again. Up next, we've got Top Rope Tedeschi talking NRL and Hall of Fame. But thanks, Cam. We'll let you get back to the surf.
Welcome back to Little Birdie. My name's Samantha Todd. I'm here with Scoot and DK, and it's time for Hall of Fame.
Nick Tedeschi joins us. It's been an illustrious list of Hall of Fame entries in the last couple of weeks. We've had Barossa, Anthony Seibold, and Jamal Murray. Welcome to the online show, Top Rope.
Oh, look, wonderful to be here, guys. It's a real treat for everyone except those that get to see this head that's typically reserved for radio getting shown in public.
So impressive how well read you are. It's quite a bookshelf you've got there.
They'd be all NRL magazines or Peter V'landys, no doubt.
the Peter V'landys post is hidden under the bed.
Oh, I wouldn't like to see what else is under there. Now, Hall of Fame for this week. Nominees, please, Top Rope.
We're going one way, and look, we're gearing up for the spring. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves too early. We don't want to get too excited. We're going to give it to. I'm going to call him the greatest survivor in Australian gambling, at least the corporate bookmaking world. He started a gig at William Hill. He found his way to BetEasy, Crown, and now he's just lobbed at Sportsbet. He will no doubt end up at Top Sport one day. The Wolf. He's dead set the only person to have worked at every joint in Australia, and the Wolf is still rolling, tipping out winners, tipping out losers. How is the Wolf the only person to have gone from Tom Waterhouse to it is absolutely incredible.
It is amazing. You're right.
Sportsbet have taken an axe to BetEasy. That would have been 90% of folks didn't get a gig. But the old Wolfie, he survives.
Incredible.
The Wolf.
Yes.
Well done. One of the great survivors. So
no
Wolfie,
one more shocked than he is, I can assure you.
Oh, that is sensational work, Top Rope, and I did not see that coming one bit. Now, let's talk NRL, and something that piqued my interest was obviously Sonny Bill Williams' return to rugby league has rubbed you up the wrong way. Wristies galore everywhere. He's a code trader, and you hate them with a passion. He should be banished forever for abandoning for a short period of time the greatest game of all.
For a short period of time, for a long period of time, abandoning Canterbury, abandoning rugby league. Look, it's bad enough he's allowed back, but to glorify this bloke, he's an absolute clown. He had a clownish return, and I hope we never see him again. Absolute disgrace he's in the NRL. If PVL's made one mistake, that's it.
Now, a mistake that I don't think PVL has made is Andrew Abdo. He was interim CEO since April. He's an accountant. They seem to be taking over the world, accountants, or they're definitely taking over the betting world.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he's the right man. What you need in the VL world is not another big personality, not someone who's going to be trying to hog the camera, hog the limelight. You just need a guy to execute for him. He's a big picture man, PVL. He's found a small picture guy in Andrew Abdo, quiet, reserved, probably the most humble guy who's ever had the top job in the NRL. So I think he'll do a very, very good job. And he's pulled all the right reins so far, and I think we'll get some very good results out of him.
And once you're in with PVL, you sort of seem to stick fat no matter what you do. Sky Channel's newest appointment for on-air talent is incredible. So there's one to watch. And I'm sure it'll be a matter of time before that person makes the Metro ranks, which absolutely blows my mind. Now, Kalen Ponga.
It's certainly something I've tried to tag on behind as well. Getting the good man's graces. You never know where it'll take you. You never know where it will take you.
Now, hopefully he's tuning into the show. Now, Kalen Ponga, has he woken up yet? The Chad Townsend send-off. I actually thought there wasn't much in this hit. Am I high?
I didn't think there was much in the hit either, to be perfectly fair. It was a good old-fashioned Ultimate Warrior shoulder block. I think where he ran himself into trouble was, I don't think the hit was high. You know, some people will tell you it was definitely high. He's definitely been targeted, though. He's definitely been hit high in weeks previous. He had a busted up nose, so he's hit high at some point in the game. I think he's not playing this week, and I think he's going to be targeted unless the NRL kind of come down a bit harder on those. He only copped 3 weeks, Chad Townsend, and whether he hit him high or not, different kettle of fish. What was bad was the whistle had blown, everyone had stopped, and he continued on with it. That was the bad part to me.
And then Michael Maguire, is he winning the battle at West?
I'd say he's losing the battle but winning the war. He's not winning over too many of these players, but at the end of the day, these players will be long gone by the time now he's been extended. There are a lot of. It's a club. I don't know what the AFL equivalent is, but it's a club just steeped in mediocrity and just accept bad results. There's no toughness at all to it. He's trying to bring a bit of toughness in. Blokes, cracking it left, right, and centre. He's a coach that won't survive 10 years. He wears thin pretty quickly, but he can take him to some good things once he gets his roster. So I dare say give him a few more years, he'll have won that war.
Okay, and then the match of the round this week is Panthers versus the Eels in the Western Derby. Sammy, there's been some market support.
Yeah, the Penny Panthers on Friday night have been supported here. They've gone from -6.5 to -8. That's the line move, of course. You can back them in the win for $1.38 or Parramatta Eels $3.10.
Top rope?
Hard game. 8 of the last 10 games have been decided by a score or less. So I'd probably rather side with the plus than the minus here. Not a lot of huge angles. One angle I will be playing pretty hard, though, is the total 36.5. I'll be backing the under in that one. 4 of the last 6 haven't top 30. These guys have gone under 11 straight. They've both got some key outs. I think this will be a tough, low-scoring grind between 2 top 4 teams. Look, similar to the Roosters raised last week. When you get to this end of the year, 2 top teams playing, defence often reigns supreme, and it will in this one.
And then looking at the rest of the round 18 matches.
The other games that are really keen to bet on early in the week. I will be backing the Tigers at the big plus. Some good angles there, and the Bulldogs at an insane plus. I'm sure the money started to come for it. Little history lesson. Go back a week. Manly opened 6.5 point favourites against the Tigers. The Tigers almost jumped favourites. The line was stupid. The move's very much trending in the same direction for the Bulldogs. Manly got a ton of outs, so I've got no idea how they're road favourites. Of 7.5 points to open with. It's into, I think, 5.5 now. It'll jump shorter than 4 come game day. So I'll be on the Dogs as well.
Now, DK, you're obviously a little bit quiet up there. How many games of NRL have you watched this year?
None. No, mate.
I thought COVID might have pushed you into the NRL.
Yeah, no, I got just so busy. Mate. I got kids and, so I struggle to get the full game of AFL down. I pick up quarters and halves here, and so no, it's a bit of a battle, mate. But
that's your problem. You're trying to absorb AFL. It's such a sport. It's a sport on the decline. Gil's looking at PVL for leadership.
I will say, you're not wrong there. I can't disagree with you there, Nick. Some of the games are just dead set unwatchable.
Something that everyone is taking note of is the American election. Can you give us a Trump update at Top Sport, Sammy?
Great idea.
DK, you got to lean Trump or Biden, or not buying
Trump,
in?
I reckon Trump will pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Scary.
Biden's now favourite. He's $1.81. Trump is $2.
Top rope?
Look, as sickening as it is to say, I'd probably lean towards Trump at the $2, to be honest. So the way America's unraveling at the moment, all it is doing is pushing people to the extremes. So I dare say that the extreme right wing is a little better organised than the extreme left. So not ideal. So I'd rather be on the $2.
They want a strong leader. Take
better
Trump.
Better the devil you know.
Going to be nearly the biggest betting event of all time, isn't it? All time.
It's being touted, yeah.
And then looking at my earlier Betfair days, it was definitely the biggest betting market. I think there's been Brexit, but the American election, everyone sort of bets really late, and the swings are just unbelievable. So it'll be fascinating. We might have to have a lock-in to watch the fluctuations on Top Sport, and I think it'll be a big, big event. Thanks for joining us, Nick, and we'll catch you next week.
See you next week, team.
Thanks, mate. Up next, we're going to talk US Open tennis, and we're going to get some market movers from Top Sport. Sammy, if you're betting this weekend...
Yeah, this weekend or any time at all on the footy or NRL or AFL, make sure that you have a bet with Top Sport. They are betting even money lines to win up to $200. So you can't lose on those kinds of odds. Make sure you are betting responsibly, though, and bet within your limits. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, call Gamblers Helpline on 1-800-858-858. back to Little Birdie. We are now about to kick off with some tennis. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much for having me again.
It's been a massive week in the US Open. Scandalous scenes with Novak Djokovic disqualified from the US Open tournament. Is that a pattern of his behaviour?
Yeah, look, I think anyone who's been watching the sport over the last 5 years in particular, there's been a pattern of near misses for Novak. He's thrown rackets. I think he threw a racket that just missed a linesperson at Roland Garros in 2016 and threw his racket, I think it was, into the crowd at the year-end championships, and actually, had a bit of a crack back at some of the reporters who were questioning his behaviour and whether he thought that there was an issue there. So I think it's all kind of come back to bite him here this week, and credit to the tournament directors for having the guts to actually stand there and go, you know what, no, you're out of the tournament, and actually, follow the rules that are there in the rule book. But the sequence of events leading up to the default itself were just ridiculous. And, for a player like Novak, who's so used to everything going his own way, it was just a little bit too much to handle.
Yeah, I tend to agree. If it was AFL or the racing industry, it definitely would have been swept under the carpet. There's rules for some, as we've said many times on this show, and there's rules for others. The minnows of the sport seem to have a different set of guidelines, but it's great work from the governing body there. Now, you were on fire last week on the show. You went 2 from 2 winners. How's the tournament going from a betting perspective, and what's the men's winner market look like now that Novak's out?
Yeah, I guess it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, and I guess it's nice to be at this point of a tournament and not have to just say, look, Novak will win or Nadal or Federer will win. It's genuinely open for the first time in almost over a decade. So look, at the moment, Daniil Medvedev, he was impressive. He was huge here last year, just losing to Nadal in a 5-setter in the final. He's taken over favoritism, and look, I thought there might be a little bit of pressure on him, taking that mantle, but he blew Tiafoe out of the water yesterday and has asserted his authority at the top of the market. But look, it's a massive chance for a number of players now. You've got Alexander Zverev through to a semi-final. You've got, Team versus De Minaur in a quarterfinal. It's a big opportunity for all these players to finally break through at the top level.
Our Sammy from South Yarra is a big...
Sorry, Scott, I was going to ask, has De Minaur got any hope?
He's probably got, look, initially I thought he had a pretty nice draw being as far away from Djokovic as possible, but now he's got Dominic Thiem in a quarterfinal, and then the winner, he'd probably have to play Medvedev then to get through. So look, it's a tough draw, but look, it's a great sign for him, what he's been able to do this week, particularly thinking forward to the Australian Open in January as well.
Yeah.
Now, Sammy's probably just entered a daydream about Sasha Zverev. But Sammy, what's the pointy end of the market looking like at top sport on the men's side there?
Well, there's currently a match in play, so the market's down. But you got Thiem and Medvedev around the $3 mark, so they're really sort of the ones who you're looking to. I'm quite disappointed that Djokovic is out, because I was hoping for another 5-setter between Thiem and the Joker again, because that was just an amazing tennis. During the Australian Open, I was hoping for a repeat. I thought he could really take it to him, and was a huge prize at the start. I think it was about $8 or so when we had you on last week.
Yeah, he's look, Thiem's really kind of built into the tournament as well. His 4th round win over Auger-Aliassime was one of the wins of the tournament. He just absolutely blew him off the court. It's going to be interesting to see that this is going to be a real test for Thiem to see where he's at as well, because De Minaur is going to run for hours and hours and hours, and he's going to need to hit through him quite consistently. So it's going to actually be a really good test for Thiem, that if he can get through De Minaur, it does set him up to be able to try and tackle who I'm assuming it will be Medvedev in the semi-final if he can get his way past Rublev. But look, it's a big opportunity for Zverev at the top as well. I mean, he's now through to a semi-final, plays the winner of Shapovalov and Carreño Busta. So you wouldn't have picked those 3 to be the final 3 standing at the top.
No, does he handle the pressure? I like Sasha, obviously, but does he handle the pressure?
I wouldn't put him at the top of the list. Had you asked me this morning when he was 1-6 down in a matter of minutes, I probably would have laughed. I'm still probably laughing at it a little bit, but look, I think the really fascinating part of this tournament now is that all those top players are gone. It's not someone trying to, dislodge them from the top. there's no one there. It's ready to be taken. It's just a matter of who's actually going to take control over the next couple of days.
Oh, Sasha Zverev, every time his name is mentioned, my heart is starting to skip a beat. Now, looking at the women's side of the tournament, Naomi Osaka and Serena Williams around the $3 quote, looking at Top Sports odds. What's your thoughts on that side of the tournament?
I think, and look, from the start of the tournament, I was big on Serena Williams. I thought that the day off between matches was really going to favour her, and it seems to have done the job so far. Bit of a trickier draw. I mean, Osaka has the nicer draw through to the final. I'm expecting it to be an Osaka and hopefully Serena Williams final, like we saw a couple of years ago. One to keep an eye on is Elise Mertens, who I don't remember if I mentioned on the show last week or not, but look, she continues to fly under the radar. She has Victoria Azarenka in a quarterfinal overnight. Look, it is a little bit wide open, but I think if there's, we're bordering on the last chance, I think, for Serena Williams to really take another slam and to, etch her name in the record books. She's been pushing and pushing, and this is, she needs to make the most of the next couple of days. Otherwise, I'm just not sure there's going to be as many opportunities in a depleted field in the coming years.
Yeah, she didn't face a top 8 player until the quarterfinals. If she doesn't get it this time around, I don't know when she will. And she is pushing for history making, isn't she?
Yeah.
She needs one more to, she's definitely going to be going after that.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting bottom half of the draw. So of the 4 players left, 3 of them are mothers that have returned to the tour. So it's nice to see. So Serena's playing Pironkova, who came back from 39 months away from the tour. This is her first tournament back, and she's into the quarterfinals of the US Open.
Amazing. Speaks volumes of the competitive nature of women's tennis at the moment. 29 players missing from the comp. 14 of them seeded. That's amazing. And Ash Barty's out again. She's just announced, I think, she's not going to be going to the French Open.
Yep. Yeah, look, it's a bit of a weird one for Ash. I feel sorry for her because, she hasn't been able to train with her coach. Her coach has been in another state here in Australia. So, you think of some other sports where, they've moved heaven and earth to get an entire sporting code from, one side of the country to another. And Ash can't get her coach into the state to be able to train with her. So, look, it has been depleted. And look, the early signs, I mean, the French Open's only, we're looking about 11 days away.
Wow.
So she's just pulled out of that. But, the field there looks to be more competitive. But it's going to be interesting because they've, looking at Roland Garros, they're hoping to have a crowd there, which blows my mind in the current state. A lot of players are still scheduled to attend, but I'm sure we'll see a couple drop out, day by day as we get closer to the tournament.
It's amazing. All right, so Elise Mertens looks like the way you want to go with Top Spot there at the 1.5. It's already been nibbled in from $1.90 into 183. And just quickly on the Australian Open, do you think it's going to go ahead still?
I think it will. I think we talked about last week. Look, they don't have any insurance covering off if the pandemic is still going on by then, which you would assume it would. They've got an advantage in that the season starts in Australia, so there's no tournaments leading up in other countries that are of significance that people will gravitate to. They'll look, players should be able to get out here early, and look, they're going to set up some quarantine bubbles and ways to make sure players don't have to sit in hotels for a couple of weeks. They've got a couple of options. I think they reported a couple of weeks ago. They've got a plan A, B, C, D, and E. The first couple have varying crowd amounts or no crowd. And then they've also got the option that if it's really looking unlikely in January, that they can potentially move the tournament to later in the year. So maybe around a March, April, or just to add to the sporting landscape in Melbourne, that they're looking that you could potentially move it to September. So that would make for quite a big couple of weeks to months, I think, across Melbourne, if assuming that we get the grand final back by then. But look, they've got a lot of options, and it'll be interesting. And I'm glad that they've got some flexibility with it. But look, I think it might come down to what the government has to say at that point in time as well.
If you want to get more of Ace's stuff, we'll let him go. He's got another appointment, but at Ace Previews on Twitter, you can find him. Thanks for joining us, Steve, and good luck with the rest of the tournament.
No worries. Thanks again for having me.
That's all we've got time for on Little Birdie Podcast. We made it. I'm COVID-free, and hopefully we're back in Essien Studios next week to record the show. A couple of highlights from the show for me. I love Dan Bowman, his passion. He's obviously keen to get racing cleaned up. He was sensational. I love Dowson. He was on dial-up internet out of the car, and he's had a little laptop there. And it's just an amazing time that we're sort of living in. Nick Tedeschi, the man, the myth, we've finally seen him in the flesh, which is great. And Sammy, you said off air that you might be making a bit of a tennis comeback, that the women's draws that shaky at the moment. I
just think there's enormous value to be had out there. If you know what you're betting on with these sorts of conditions that we're currently facing. So I'd be 100% following Steve in here. Make sure that you head to littlebirdiepot.com, where you'll find all of our work and previous episodes as well. Make sure you link and subscribe, because he's giving out gems. We're backing winners, tipping winners week after week. If you're missing out, you're missing out on free money.
Exactly. And Cam Dean is on fire, not just with the futures betting, but he's absolutely airborne on his week-to-week stuff. And DK, have you got a little provincial winner for us in the next couple of days?
Provincial, yeah. Tomorrow Mornington, not one of my favourite tracks, but if I'm going to bet there, it's with a grouse combination of Ben Mellum and Matt Laurie. They've got a first starter in race 3 called Out to Win. This is the time of year when a lot of really nice first starters get produced and they've got an edge over the racehorses. And so I thought it'll be hard to beat on debut tomorrow on its home track.
Race 3, Matt Laurie train out to win with Ben Mellum on top. That's all we've got time for, and we'll catch you next week on Little Birdie Podcast.